Okay, great. Now we're gonna move over to Ian Wright. We've asked Ian, as I've explained a bit in the beginning, to at every expert track to do a small survey or to do a small online survey and give a view from him as a customer almost looking at certain things. And Ian, today, Ian, welcome. Ian will talk about how, when he goes online, how easy or how hard it is to be convinced to buy electrified vehicles. So, Ian, I leave it to you, and you can share your screen right now.
Brilliant. Thanks, Johan. And
No problem.
thanks for inviting me. I think just to sort of give a little, if you like, backdrop to it, for want of a better word, as you say, is we've approached this from a point of view of, if you like, trying to see it from a customer's point of view. And in doing so, we did a bit of research just to look to see where typical behaviors are. And the obvious thing that jumped out was that the research that's being done currently is suggesting that if we stick with UK, which is the market we've looked at in the first instance, one of the recent surveys said that 55% of British drivers will consider buying a used EV in the next 5 years. So that sort of gives an indication, if you like, as to where we're going to get with all of this. I'm sorry, Johan, can you still see me?
I can see you. Can you share your screen?
I'm struggling just at the moment. Sorry, just bear with me.
Below on the
share. I've got it. It just won't, for some reason, it won't share my screen.
Maybe now I've stopped sharing mine. Maybe this normally it's not an issue, but
no. Johan, could you continue with the presentation which we've prepared? And if you can drive it, I can't get mine to load for some reason. It just will not. It won't accept.
Just give me a few seconds and then I will find it. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So what I was basically saying was that in putting the research together, we've looked at this obviously from a perspective of a customer. It's very clear that the move over to BEVs is now everywhere, and I think, as probably has already been talked about throughout the course of today, the pandemic has accelerated the interest in this. So in terms of us sort of delving in and having a look to see what influenced the if you like, the manufacturer approved programs was having, it was very insightful from our side to be able to look to be able to see what the manufacturers are doing. I don't know, can you see the presentation now, Johan? You are on mute, Johan, sorry.
It's there.
Brilliant. Okay, fabulous. Yeah, so if we can move to the next slide. So what we did was we looked at all of the, if you like, the primary manufacturers that we know have already got EVs in the marketplace or BEVs in the marketplace. And perhaps, the thing that we were most instantly looking for was to say, are there any influencing factors within the promotion of the programs that would help or assist a would-be new adopter going to EVs in terms of helping them convince them that this is the right thing? Martin's just made a raft of good points. I was making notes as he was going through his presentation around the fact that battery quality is clearly the single biggest, if you like, concern for a would-be buyer. That came out also in the survey that we looked at. Overwhelmingly, people were saying that battery condition was their primary concern. So I suppose when we were looking at the programs per se, we were looking to try to see whether or not the OEMs and a couple of the independents that we looked at had focused on this. Now, I guess the best way for me to position this from the point of view of a consumer is to say, if you dig deep enough, you can find it. But it isn't really an influencer at this stage, or it isn't something which was clearly apparent in terms of us being able to identify with the fact that the manufacturers and the independents had recognized this as being a key element. Now, it would be easy to say, well, a potential buyer of a used EV is going to do the bulk of their research looking as if it's a new car. But actually, from our experience, and I've spent the last 20 odd years working in the industry and working with OEMs with the development of their approved programs and if you like their networks and how the programs interact with them. It was difficult, if you like, without being ultra critical of everybody, to say that there was any kind of influencing factor. And I think that from a behavioral point of view, it's naive to think that everyone's going to look at the new car information and then just transition across to used. I think there's a misnomer that people say, well, a typical used car buyer is somebody that can't afford a new one. And that simply isn't true, because if you look at, for instance, someone who is in the market to buy a 2-year-old Tesla, for instance, they can definitely afford to buy new EVs as an exception to that. So I think the first thing we have to do is take away, if you like, the theory that people will naturally gyrate and do all their research based around new vehicles. I think if you're diving into the used vehicle market, there should be some commitment from the OEMs and from the independents that are offering these vehicles for sale, if you like, to give us or to build a case as to why these are a good choice. The battery warranty is fairly typically across all manufacturers 8 years, circa 160,000 kilometers or 100,000 miles if you're based here in the UK. And as I say, if you dig hard, you find that information. With the likes of Tesla and Polestar, the information is more readily available around that. But then if you look at Tesla as by way of an example, the complexities of their warranty in terms of the structure of the car, the warranty period is a different period, obviously, to the battery, which is, as I say, 8 years and 160,000 kilometers. And similarly, there are restrictions on the warranty for things like the platform inside, the navigation and infotainment system, just by way of an example. And I suppose that started to lead to a degree of frustration when we were actually looking at the various different sites and the vehicles which were available. If you like, some of the more conventional approaches which made us if you like, engage and look more was, as Martin alluded to, with the value of the OEM programs around the extension of the warranty. So, for instance, with Polestar offering 24 months, Toyota and Lexus is offering, which was quite interesting, which they introduced, I think, a couple of years ago now, where if you take the vehicle back to them for servicing work, up until it's 10 years old, or in the UK case, 100,000 miles, the warranty period is renewed every year. So as a retention tool for the retailer, it's fantastic. Customer benefits, obviously fantastic, because you're getting another year's warranty. I guess if I had to offer a summary of it, it was that it was a frustrating exercise. It wasn't something that naturally enabled me to say the OEMs are providing us an easy, if you like, an easy route to understand EV ownership. And also, if you like, satisfying some of the concerns, as Martin's just alluded to, in terms of battery state of health and, if you like, reassurance through the warranty. As I say, you have to dig to find out the details. And when you do get to it, some of it is quite confusing. Perhaps if we can have a quick look. The other thing that jumped out at us was the complexity of it and the language that gets used in some of these circumstances. And I mean, bearing in mind that obviously myself and my colleague that were involved in sort of putting this together have been around the industry for some time, and obviously are used to some jargon. But the extract we've taken here to show you is from the Mercedes site and talks around, if you like, the implications of the battery certification for certain models in the Mercedes-Benz range. And it's just baffling. I mean, if you've drilled into this level of detail and you start looking at it, you can see that the conditions for the warranty vary dependent on the mileage, which is dependent on the different types of battery that are fitted to the respective models. And quite overwhelming, for if you like, a regular consumer. I think that you would find this quite baffling. If we could move to the next slide. So I guess the question is, there's a couple of questions I'd pose, as always with research. I think it often, if you like, raises more questions than it provides answers. So the first question is, will OEMs and ultimately some of the competitors, in terms of independence, try to simplify this as a process? Do we acknowledge that this is, that the approved programs, certified pre-owned programs, have a place to, if you like, try and simplify the process of BEVs and, if you like, the warranty packages that go around them? Hyundai, by example, for instance, have introduced a very simple, the Hyundai Promise, which covers all the powertrains. And it's 2-year warranty on all cars, up to 5 years, 120,000 kilometers, irrespective of the drivetrain. And that then led us to another question, which was, are we looking at this? Are we looking at the programs to try to satisfy a circumstance that doesn't exist? I think the manufacturers' approaches, as we've looked at it, really are focused on treating battery electric vehicles in the same way as you would internal combustion engines. And maybe that might be the right thing to do. But when you then think about it from the consumer's point of view, it's still, to me and for my colleague that assisted me with putting the information together, led us down the route that said we would expect to see something more that provides a peace of mind in terms of stepping into what is still seen as being a relatively new technology. A couple of the previous slides, this slide and the following slide show examples of adverts which are being run by independents. And the reason for highlighting these two elements effectively was that in both instances, these cars, one is still under its manufacturer's warranty. So the i3 is still under its manufacturer warranty. The Tesla is a 2017 and therefore falls outside of the scope of the standard warranty. But the highlighted box is red, effectively reflecting the fact both of the independents are only talking about a 3-month or 90-day warranty period. Now, 46,000, well, nearly 47,000 pounds for the Tesla in question, immediately begs the question as to say, for a car of that value, with embracing the technologies and all of the functions and if you like, degradation issues that Martin's just highlighted, are we really thinking that that's sufficient by way of warranty coverage to satisfy somebody buying at that level? I don't know. Let's see. Johan, over to you.
Okay. When we were putting this together, it led a lot on what's available online, and that's why I've added just one slider here. Because we have done also in the past for the last year, starting 2019, and we actually presented the research in 2019 in Estoril, I think, at the conference, Remarketing conference, is a research about, at that point of time, it was about how ready are the used car websites and used car locators for online sales, or basically distance sales. This basically is changed over the years into a different form, other questions, other focus, and it focuses on creating a trust in the vehicle by having an ideal display, creating trust in the vehicle again, but also in the seller, then trying to accommodate the sale through lead management and things, and also having an optimal search. We have now just moved, I think we've done it now 8 times for the different OEMs or players. Why? And I'm going to use this to then take back what Ian has had from his research to try and make it very visible. Is like, if we want to close a deal online, we basically want to have 5 points right. People need to trust the vehicle, trust the seller. Afterwards, if they trust both, they still need security. Security is more warranty. And the question came in that if an OEM give now 10 years warranty. Is it enough? It could be okay, but still they might not trust the capacity, even if there is a certain warranty. Then also this fourth point is search. My car. People need to drill down in a search in order to come to 3-4 vehicles that they can compare, and then they choose the only one which they say this is the one. If they can't do this, they can keep on searching. And a lot of websites, even brand websites, don't offer that capability. You can't even compare a petrol with an EV, which of course for them is a challenge. And of course it needs to be very convenient. That brings us to 5 points that we are going to add in this type of research. One is what we've discussed before, the state of health. Then point 2 is basically a specific warranty. Point 3 are there need to be new description fields, new search criteria based on EVs. A lot of websites don't offer things that you need if you want to search for EVs. And then of course the feasibility. People that come on there are not yet convinced about the feasibility that they will drive with an EV. So there needs to be additional information as well. And then point 5, affordability. We've been talking about cost of ownership. Basically, people need to be convinced that they will make up for the higher price maybe with running cost advantages. So in the new one that we will do within 6 weeks, I think we will add those points as well. Just to highlight the fact that these are new areas where used car websites locators ideally need to move into and be added. Now I'm gonna stop sharing mine here or end the show. Okay, we're here. And now I need to move because we've moved a bit to the conclusion, Ian's conclusion, which is this one. So Ian, I just handed it back to you for a quick conclusion before we go into the expert session.
Brilliant. Thanks, Johan. I think the things that were very clearly apparent from, if you like, the conclusion of the exercise centered around the fact that the general consensus was that the OEM approved program sites have the ability to positively influence buyers' behavior in terms of, if you like, trying to clarify the situation on EVs and, as Johan's just touched on, highlight the advantages to ownership. That's missing at the moment. It's very clear, unless you're prepared to dig very deep and, if you like, dive between the manufacturers' new car sites and used car sites, so that you get a better picture. Because there's no question within the new car arena, there's a lot of information there which is obviously pertinent to battery electric vehicles and all of the associated benefits that go with them. But as I just touched on a few minutes ago, I don't necessarily think that we should treat used car buyers as people that can't necessarily afford new ones, and therefore their starting position in terms of their search may very well be on the approved sites. And I think to that end, we've highlighted, if you like, the first element about talking to a battery electric vehicle customer. So there needs to be more rationale around the program in supporting the likely concerns. Again, I'm going to go back to Martin's point about certification and security around the life expectancy and chargeability of the battery. And I don't think we can come away from the fact that the customer's perception of the cost of the battery is still, the primary area of concern. We need to demystify the technology, and in that we need to find some common language that consumers will understand. Even things like wall chargers or EV charge points, each of the manufacturers seems to use a different terminology. Mercedes-Benz currently have a used offer on with their BEVs where there is a contribution to a wall charger. Fine, but there is no description within the offer, if you like, that explains what it is and what it does and what the likely benefits are for the customer. And as I say, just the use of technology makes it sort of difficult or more difficult than it needs to be to understand. as Johan's just touched on, we need to be able to facilitate a comparative search. So if a customer is doing the comparison between, for instance, a battery electric vehicle and either a petrol, diesel or hybrid equivalent, we ought to be able to do that simplistically. And if you like, the benefits need to be very clear in terms of whether or not that's total cost of ownership or running costs. Now, to Tesla's credit, and I think we mentioned this when we were talking earlier, Johan, they do talk about a costed saving within each of the vehicle prices. But that, of course, is an approximation, and it's based on a theoretical exercise. It isn't necessarily factual. And again, from a customer perspective, it perhaps leads to more questions than it does, if you like, proffering answers. And I think the other element that we need to focus on is addressing the issues of customer peace of mind. We've talked about state of health. But I think the other thing is that, given the fact that we know that this is a more expensive technology to buy into, but not necessarily a more expensive technology to own, we need to make sure that the warranty offering is clear. And the difference between the warranty, if you like, for the car itself and the battery and if you like, the drivetrain technology needs to be much more simple for people to understand and reassure them.
Sorry, could you close a bit then? To leave enough time for the
of course,
panel.
I'm sorry, Johan. And the final element around this, obviously, is that there's a great opportunity. This offers the first route, effectively, for many into EV ownership. As I say, 55% of the UK population are looking at EVs in the next 5 years. So, let's not be caught wanting. Let's not get overtaken by some of the independents, if you like, embracing this technology and clarifying it quicker, and basically develop clear and simple retention programs for EVs so that we're engaging people earlier. And that's as quick as I can go, Johan.